Hi, so the video annoyingly cut off at the end of Renegade there. Should just say Renegade was produced by Christos Sangarides. Obviously he did Tigers of Pantang, and later on he did Painkiller by Judas Priest. The final album, John Sykes comes in for the Thunder and Lightning album. So it's a bit controversial, this, because Lizzy go kind of metal effectively. But Sykes has an amazing impact. They do the song Cold Sweat, which is an all-time classic. I think that illustrates Brian Downey's groove brilliantly, the way the opening riff, and then he just hits that bass drum and snare perfectly, and he comes in such a good groove. Sykes unleashes some face melters on this album, which, I question their suitability for Thin Lizzy, but at the same time, the guy just came in and did a ripping job. But let's just have a look. I haven't got a copy of this because I'm looking for a double disc copy. I sold mine, and they're too expensive. Silly boy. But the title track's called Thunder and Lightning. They still play this on Planet Rock. It's got ridiculous shredding on it. I think that's one of the things. I think the balance. I think it lost its balance with Scott Gorham. Scott Gorham with Gary Moore or Brian Robertson. They've got that kind of blues-based pentatonic thing. Obviously, guitarists will understand what I mean there, and it works. So it's interesting enough, even though John Sykes copies a lot of Gary Moore licks, Gary Moore kind of sat back a bit in Lizzy and played for the songs, but Sykes goes full Sykes. But, I love the guys playing. I do think he injected, this was an improvement on the previous two albums. Although I don't like it as much as he used to. Then you got This Is the One, which is a good track. Then The Lovely Sun Goes Down, great solo by Scott. And then one of the great deep cuts, The Holy War. Really good lyrics, amazing Sykes solo on this. He just does some beautiful stuff up top, Then side two with Cold Sweat, absolutely classic. Then I think the album tails off. I think that's the problem. You got these first 5 tracks. It's front loaded. Someday She's Gonna Hit Back. Interesting kind of strange chord changes in that. Darren Wharton co-writes. He puts in lots of minor 11s, minor 7s, jazzy type chords. So quite like that. Baby Please Don't Go. That's fairly lame. Bad Habits. It's all right. And then Heart Attack. Yeah, it's kind of that thing with Thin Lizzy albums where songs that can start to tail off those last 2 or 3 tracks. It is a good. It's a good album. I'd give it. I think years ago I would have given it an 8 out of 10. I'm kind of more of the feeling it's a kind of 6 out of 10 now. So the last few albums, Chinatown, Renegade 5/5, this is 6, maybe a 7. Black Rose is 7 for me, and some people wouldn't agree with that. It was kind of tailing off. After this, they did the Life live album, which isn't supposed to be very good. I must confess I've never listened to it. I'm not massive on live albums, although I will do a video of my favourite live albums because there is some I love. And then the band split up. John Sykes goes to Whitesnake and helps 2 of the Slide It In album, helps with a remix, and then writes the 1987 album and basically has huge success and becomes one of the great players of the 80s. Phil Lynott forms Grand Slam with Lawrence Archer, and then he does the Out in the Fields, Military Man on Gary Moore's Run for Cover album, and then he dies early 86, I think it's January the 4th. I still remember he went into hospital, I think it was before Christmas. Phil Lynnott's not well, he's in hospital, and naturally when you're young kid back then, you're like, oh, it'll be alright, oh, I'm sure it's now, but obviously when you read into the history, he was very ill because of the abuse of his body, and I think he knew he wouldn't come back from it, and obviously died of renal failure in early 86, but I still remember them giving a little tribute to him on Top of the Pops. I think it was Kid Jensen and Mike Reid might have been presenting it. I've just got it in the back of my mind. I remember them mentioning that he passed away. And that was nice. And then there was no recognition at the Brit Awards that year, and Huey Lewis won for Best International Act, and he gave some patter about Phil Lynott because they were great friends. I think Huey Lewis plays harmonica on Live and Dangerous, Baby Drive Me Crazy or something. Don't quote me on that. Because they played with Huey Lewis in the News out in the States, I think. So he didn't really, what happened to Phil, and his stock was high and his stock had gone down, and he didn't get asked to do Live Aid, even though his mates with Bob Geldof and mid-year. But I think the reasons for that is they were worried about what condition he'd be in. It's just a really sad story, if he could have turned it around and kicked his habit in the early 80s. And survived, he would have had an amazing noughties. This band would have had. They get played on classic rock all the time. There's loads of compilations. There's loads of stuff out there about Lizzy, and he had the songbook to go out and play an arena, and it just would have been hit after hit. But that sadly wasn't to be. In summarising, the Gorham Robertson era is some of the greatest rock music ever. There's no doubt about that. I think Fighting, Fruit of Black Rose include that, with Live and Dangerous. There's a great collection of stuff there. There's interesting stuff before that, and there's some great songs after that. I do think John Sykes injected something in the band. I think the Thunder and Lightning album was a better album because of it. Later on, they'd go out and tour under the name Thin Lizzy, Scott Gorham and John Sykes, and had a permission of the estate. A lot of people criticise that. I would have preferred if it was called From Thin Lizzy or something, I don't know. But at the end of the day, the guys had played in Thin Lizzy. Scott Gorham was a long-term member, and John Sykes was Phil Lynnett's final choice as guitar player, and Phil Lynott wanted to get the band back together with Sykes on guitar. I caught a couple of shows, and they were really enjoyable. They were great nights. One of them, Michael Lee, was playing drums for the Little Angels, sadly before he passed away. He was excellent. Tommy Aldridge was on the other one. Not the right feel for Lizzy, but it was good fun. Later on after that, they got back together with Darren Wharton, Viv Campbell played guitar, Ricky Warwick. Apparently that sounded a little more authentic, but I never saw that. But eventually that mutated into Black Star Riders. But the other thing's Brian Downey, I think very underrated drummer. Great feel, great fills, brilliant cog in the machine. Phil Lynott, brilliant bass player, brilliant lyricist, great sort of vocal tone. Amazing songbook. A great band. It's been fun going through these albums. Like I say, some of them I think are better than others. And some of them, those early ones, it'd be nice to be more familiar with them, but it was just never really checked them out at the time because there's so many different eras of Thin Lizzy. So apologies for it splitting into two parts. It wasn't my intention, but I hope you enjoyed that, and see you again soon. Remember to subscribe to Box on the Box, Rock and Cellular.Boprack. You'll find it. Share and subscribe, please. Thanks very much. Bye now.